Hello, my name is Rodrigo Rios, first period Chaki. There's something about modern day democracy, a huge concept. Don't you ever wonder how it all started out? It all started with the views of two Enlightenment philosophers, John Locke and Montesquieu. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia, John Locke's view on government was that all people are equal and independent and people should protect their life, health, liberty, and possessions. Montesquieu's view was that splitting the government into three powered branches was the most logical. As you think about our modern day democracy, you can see that both of these concepts in a bright light, but it is possible to see similarities and differences in the same light. According to Wikipedia, the definition of democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives, but that definition doesn't tell the whole story. Democracy is Greek for people's rule. It refers to a set of political ideas that became popular worldwide during the last century, but that, for most of human history, have been considered dangerous, short-sighted, and potentially insane. According to Montesquieu's biography on Britannica, long ago in Europe, Montesquieu and full Charles Louis de Sectant, Baron de la Brit de la Montesquieu, was born in January 18, 1689 in France. Montesquieu was educated in the College de Juillet, close to Paris, which provided a sound education on enlightened and modern lines. He left July in 1705, continued studies at the Faculty of Law at the University of Bordeaux, and he graduated and became an advocate in 1708. French political philosopher Montesquieu was best known for The Spirit of Laws, May 1748. It is considered as one of the great works in history of political theory. Among its influential arguments were the classification of governments as republics and monarchies, most partly the theory of the separation of powers. John Locke was born on August 29th, 1632 in England. Locke's education took place at Westminster School in distant London. It was to this already famous institution that Locke went to in 1647 at age 14. Although Locke was evidently a good student, he didn't enjoy his schooling. John Locke's most famous work was a book named Treatise of Government, in which he defended a theory of political authority based on natural, individual rights and freedoms and the consent of the governed. In political theory, John Locke refuted the theory of the divine right of kings and argued that all persons are endowed with natural rights to life, liberty, and property, and that rulers who fail to protect these rights may be removed by the people by force if necessary. During the time of the French Revolution, France was under a monarchy government. The French Revolution was the result of an absolute monarchy government being in control and the government not fitting the needs of the people. The principles of the French government didn't meet the guidelines of Montesquieu and the people. Montesquieu likes the ideas of a constitutional monarchy as it is well run. Montesquieu admires the factor of the separate powers. Montesquieu also believes that population is a key factor in a government, as small, medium, and large-sized governments should be run differently. In France, the population was huge, and Montesquieu says that a large, diverse government should have stronger leaders. He believed that in a government with a huge population, the leaders would put themselves before the whole country. Another huge factor of Montesquieu's impact was his work, The Spirit of Laws. In The Spirit of Laws, he mentions a strong government is separated into different powers. His work was spread all throughout Europe and became one of the most important pieces of the French Revolution. In his work, he states, the intermediate, subordinate, and dependent powers constitution the nature of monarchical government. I mean of that in which a single person governs by fundamental laws. I said the intermediate, subordinate, and dependent powers indeed in monarchies. The prince is the source of all power, political and civil. These fundamental laws necessarily suppose the intermediate channels through which the power flows, for if there only be monetary and capricious will of a single person to govern the state, nothing can be fixed, and of course there is no fundamental law. This shows his thoughts on how one ruler controls everyone else and how everything will not run smoothly. When the Constitution was put in place, Montesquieu's idea of splitting up power was put in place. According to Locke, there are three rights each person should have and protect: life, liberty, and property. This is shown through the quote Locke gave in the Treatise of Civil Government. He stated, the state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone, and reason which is that law teaches all mankind, who will but consult it, that being all equal and independent, no one out to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions, for man being all the workmanship of omnipotent and infinitely wise maker. All the servants of one sovereign master sent into the world by his order and about his business, they are his property, whose workmanship they are made to last during his, not one's another's pleasure, and being furnished with like faculties. sharing all in one community of nature, there cannot be supposed any such subordination among us. That may authorize us to destroy one another, as if we were made for one another's uses, as if inferior ranks of creatures are for ours. John Locke also states in the Second Treaty of Government, and that all men may be restrained from invading others' rights and from doing hurt to one another, and the law of nature is observed, which willeth the peace and preservation of all mankind. The execution of the law of nature is in that state put into every man's hand, whereby everyone has a right to punish transgressors of that law to such a degree as may hinder its violation. For the law of nature would, as all other laws that concern men in this world, be in vain, if there were no body that in the state of nature had a power to execute that law and thereby preserve the innocent and restrain offenders. This statement helps back up law, as he presented the idea, and it defends the idea of owning property, in which each person has the right to their own and protect their property. When writing the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson used Locke's philosophy, but instead of the right to property, he changed pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness dispenses more right for a person. Locke was known as the father of enlightenment because he built the basis for other enlightenment ideas. Locke inspired many other Enlightenment philosophers like Voltaire, who also played a huge role in history, in which he praised Locke and his ideas. During the time of the American Revolution, John Locke's ideas were the fuel to people's rebellious mentality. The people were experiencing unlawful taxation without representation, which are related to Locke's writings. Since people's properties were being taxed, it failed to meet the natural rights that Locke wrote. This went against the right to own property. The people gave no consent to the taxation. Montesquieu also played a huge role in the American Revolution, as Montesquieu's philosophy was to divide the powers to protect liberty and avoid corruption. Montesquieu warned, were the executive power not to have a right of restraining the encroachments of the legislative body, the latter would be most despotic, for as it might arrogate to itself what authority it pleased, it would soon destroy all the powers. This statement from Montesquieu shows how corruption will occur in government without no divided powers. As a result of the information Montesquieu provided, James Madison and the Founding Fathers based the United States Constitution on Montesquieu's ideas. All in all, Montesquieu's views and studies of government led him to believe that government corruption was a problem if a system of government didn't include balance of powers. He conceived the idea of separating government authority into three major branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. Locke also argued that if government failed to protect our natural rights, then the people had the right to replace the government. Locke's ideas became very influential in developing democratic ideas. Thomas Jefferson, in writing the Declaration of Independence, drew heavily from the writings of John Locke. We're all very grateful for both of these people's amazing ideas. Thank you.